YouTube, what is good, bruv, and what's gonna be back with another video. So with my previous two videos I made on the best modern turn-based and action JRPGs, which are so well received, I thought it was only right to show some love to one of my favourite genres in strategy RPGs. So stay tuned as I give you guys 5 of the best modern strategy JRPGs I feel you should be checking out. Tactics Ogre Reborn. So if you're a massive strategy RPG buff, this game will come as a no-brainer and is widely considered to be the crown jewel of all strategy RPGs. My first introduction to Tactics Ogre was actually the PSP release back in 2011 under the name Tactics Ogre Let Us Cling Together. The one thing that immediately grabbed me, aside from the beautiful art style that very much reminded me of one of my favourite strategy games ever in Final Fantasy Tactics The War of the Lions, which was another amazing strategy RPG from Square Enix, was the gripping and well-told political war story. The game's story deals with so much from classism to ethnic groups being divided and oppression, and is something I later went on to appreciate way more, especially when it came to playing the recent remaster in Tactics Ogre Reborn. So aside from the really well told story, the gameplay is very much at the forefront of Tactics Ogre Reborn, and it's actually a combat system that has a lot of depth and layers, meaning it's very hard to get on the game and just run past levels and enemies. The game will have you meticulously plan out each of your turns and actions, where most strategy RPGs won't punish you too hard for a misplay like putting a unit in place to kill an enemy but leaving them in harm's way. Tactics Ogre is a game that makes you feel its difficulty in pretty much every engagement. This means you have to think about where you place units and when to attack or go gung-ho. I think what also adds to the challenge of Tactics Ogre Reborn is that the game imposes a party level cap that slowly raises over the course of the story. Characters will level up individually, which essentially forces you to adapt in each situation in battle, meaning you can't level grind, which really adds to the challenge and fun of the game. Tactics Ogre Reborn may not be for everyone, but if you're a strategy RPG buff, Tactics Ogre Reborn is right up your street. The game makes for some challenging yet addictive gameplay and is most definitely up there and still considered to be one of the best modern strategy RPGs to this day. Disgaea 5. Now if you guys are fans of the channel and know me well, you already know I had to include this game and series on this list. Disgaea 5 for me will always be one of my favourite strategy RPGs ever. Very different in terms of gameplay to a game we just talked about in Tactics Ogre Reborn, Disgaea 5 is very much lighthearted in tone from everything such as story, characters and just the overall gameplay. The Disgaea games have always been some of my favourite strategy RPGs because it very much encourages grinding, and the main premise behind the gameplay is actually to grind. Every new Disgaea entry, the level cap gets higher and higher, with the current level cap being 99,999,999, and yes, you heard me right. I've always loved how newcomer friendly the series is, and it was actually the first strategy RPG series I played when I was younger. The Disgaea games have always had this charm about them, from the older games' 2D sprites to the insanely wacky cast of characters on each entry and the stories that never take themselves too seriously. It's always been a series that I play whenever a new entry comes out. Now Disgaea 5 is easily my favourite game in the series, and you can start with any game you want to, as stories are all standalone and for the most part, as mentioned, don't take themselves too seriously and are used as comedic background. But the one game I always recommend to people is Disgaea 5. Mainly down to my personal love for the cast of characters, with each one of them feeling more memorable to me as opposed to previous entries in the series. So the gameplay in Disgaea games has effectively stayed the same from entry to entry, but if you're either new to strategy RPGs or a returning veteran, there's always some fun to be had in the Disgaea games. So for me personally, I still feel the Disgaea games are some of the most slept on and most underrated strategy RPGs out there. It's a series I can't help but recommend and will always be one of my favourite game series ever, and it's most definitely one of the best modern strategy RPGs I feel everyone needs to play. Valkyria Chronicles. Now moving on to a personal favourite of mine, and in the same vein as the Disgaea games in terms of how underrated the series is, we have Valkyria Chronicles. Just from looking at Valkyria Chronicles' beautiful art style and that unique blend of cel shaded graphics very reminiscent of 90s anime and the breathtaking watercoloured looking style of backgrounds and environments, no strategy RPG in my opinion is as unique as Valkyria Chronicles. So the Valkyria Chronicles games essentially tell a war story, but in a way that feels very reminiscent of an anime. With characters having very strong and unique lovable personalities throughout, it really adds to your immersion with the game's cast of characters and beautifully told story. So the gameplay in Valkyria Chronicles is a big reason why I love the series as a whole. They're essentially military themed strategy RPGs that have you command your units, with each unit having a specific type of weakness for you to exploit. The game may seem like you can just run down the enemy, but I love how it will have you plan out how you're going to execute your strategy by picking the right units to deploy, which will lead to the best course of winning the battle. All units in Valkyria Chronicles vary in movement. and have a limited window of movement, meaning it's up to you to meticulously plan out where to move your units to get the jump on an enemy or move them to an effective cover spot to avoid taking damage when it's the enemy's turn. The game has so many different ways you can tackle battles, and that's one thing I really love about the game. So for me personally, Valkyria Chronicles has always been a unique and super slept on game, and is a game I implore more people to check out, and is a big reason why it's by far one of my favourite modern strategy RPGs till this day. Triangle Strategy. Arguably the best recent strategy JRPG to release, Triangle Strategy for me personally is one of the best games to release in 2022. From the amazing team behind the Octopath Traveler series of games, Team Asano absolutely killed it with Triangle Strategy. From the game's beautiful HD 2D art style, which I can never get enough of, the insanely deep decision based nature of the game, the deep politically war driven story, and the amazing cast of fleshed out characters, Triangle Strategy never missed a beat and was a game that had me hooked right from the very start right to the very end. So the one thing that I really loved about this game was the decision based nature of the game, which was executed superbly through the game's scales of conviction system, where big story decisions really mattered and came down to you as the player consulting your party where you would have to sway votes in your favour. Getting members of your party to get on board with your decisions was something I felt no other strategy RPG has done really well. The game really made you feel engaged and was a big mechanic I praised throughout the game, meaning no line of dialogue was wasted and each interaction with party members always mattered, meaning your decisions held so much more weight throughout your journey. So the combat in Triangle Strategy is something I always praise highly. It never does too much to overwhelm you as the player, but has that right blend of challenge and ease to it, meaning the game has you deeply think about decisions like keeping a unit out of harm's way or placing an archer on high ground to get knockback damaged and letting your stronger units do damage to finish kills. I really love the simplicity yet depth and freedom that combat gave you, and that's one thing I really appreciate in strategy RPGs. Triangle Strategy for me is a game I will always talk about in fondness, and just like a few games mentioned in this list, and strategy RPGs aside, I feel it's a game in general that's just criminally underrated and more people need to play it. The game has a beautiful art style, some really great voice acting, a deep and gripping story, and some really great characters, and is a big reason for me why I consider it to be one of the best modern strategy RPGs I feel everyone needs to play. Fire Emblem Three Houses. I'm finally moving on to the best modern strategy RPG in my opinion, and a game a lot of people are very familiar with. We have Fire Emblem Three Houses. For me, in the last few years, I don't think there's been a strategy RPG that I've talked about more in fondness than Fire Emblem Three Houses. I feel it's a must-play Switch game, and a game I feel is super newcomer friendly, but also has the same challenge and charm of older Fire Emblem titles that can be enjoyed by new and returning players alike. So without spoiling too much of the story, Fire Emblem Three Houses is set on the continent of Fodlan, divided between three ruling powers which are currently at peace. These nations are connected through the Garreg Monastery, which houses a church and an officer school for students from each nation. The game sees you take on the role of Byleth, a former mercenary with a mysterious past and the academy's newest professor. You as the player must choose a class to lead and guide their students through a series of battles. The game maintains the turn-based tactical gameplay of the previous Fire Emblem titles while incorporating social simulation and time management elements. Fire Emblem makes for some high replayability, and one thing that I love about Fire Emblem games is that the combat never gets old. For me personally, out of the three houses you get to play with, I love the Three Lions story, and I loved every single member of that house, with my favourite units being Dimitri and especially Felix. That dude was an absolute beast throughout my playthrough. So the one thing that I absolutely loved about Fire Emblem Three Houses was the social sim aspect to the game, and was a big reason why I grew so attached to this game, and is a big reason why I consider it to be one of my favourite games in the series. Just being able to have downtime in between combat to interact with different characters, to build a better bond with them, to inevitably help you in combat just felt so rewarding, and I feel helped give characters so much more depth rather than them just being units you used in battle and didn't really care too much for. So for me personally, Fire Emblem Three Houses is most definitely a game I still hold in high regard, and as mentioned is an entry in the Fire Emblem series that is widely viewed as one of the best modern Fire Emblem games in the series. It's a game I 100% recommend to new and older fans alike, and is most definitely the best modern strategy JRPG I played to this day. So that'll do it for this video guys. I really appreciate you guys for watching. I'd love to know what some of your favourite modern strategy JRPGs are, so please let me know down below in the comments. So please like, sub, share if you're new, hit that notification bell to get notified for my videos first, and I hope I can be you guys' #1 source for all JRPG news. So from me too, this has been your bruv, the big bruv, and I'm gonna catch you guys on the next video. I'm out. Peace!